If you want to help support the channel, check out my Teespring store. There's a link in the description and you'll find items such as this, a soy story. Okay, so a lot of Star Wars talk going on right now about how Star Wars is, on the outs. Disney's cooking books. All kinds of weird stuff. I don't know what's up with that. Disney's cooking books. That really shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. A lot of weird stuff going on with Disney right now. So the fact that they spent so much money on so many things, to think that their revenue is way, way up is kind of weird. Galaxy's Edge is on the outs. A lot of weird things coming out of Disney. But apparently, Netflix did something funny. Let's settle this once and for all. What's more popular? Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. 38,000 votes. That's not a small sample. All right, that's a nice sample that you could put that's, reflective of the population. That's a good sample. 38,000. 61% for Lord of the Rings. That's high. I don't know if people are doing that out of spite. But here's the thing. I don't think it can be out of spite. This is not Fandom Menace. This is not, one side of Twitter. This is Netflix. Netflix is kind of middle of the ground. What are they? They probably have a crap ton of followers. If we were to go over there and look, I would recommend, 132K. All right. That's a pretty middle of the road crowd too. This is all normies. All right. Like I said, no one has a stake in this. Netflix doesn't even have a stake in this. As Disney runs Star Wars and Amazon will be putting out a new Lord of the Rings TV series. That's what's really interesting about this. I would say if you would ever want a good middle of the road sample and really find out a question like that, this is a good Twitter account for it. 38,000 people is not a small sample. So this is really interesting. I think people really underestimate what was done to Star Wars with The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi really, really damaged Star Wars. And Lord of the Rings, well, at least at the time, was kind of a cultural milestone. I think that they're going to kind of mess it up by doing this Lord of the Rings TV series, but we know what that's about. That's trying to capture some of that Game of Thrones magic. That's exactly what they're doing with that TV show, is they want to capture Game of Thrones audience and stuff like that. There's no other reason to do that show other than that. It's a good property for it. Not as much drama as Game of Thrones, though. I don't really know if you can capture the feeling of those books, but we'll see what happens. Either way, it's in a lot better of a position than Star Wars. They have a little nice sum up here. It says, the Star Wars franchise took a massive nosedive following Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi. The film saw Johnson utterly destroy the character of Luke Skywalker as he drank milk from the teat of an alien, tossed aside his lightsaber, attempted to murder his nephew, and severed himself from the Force, which I think is true. Not only did the film attempt to character assassinate Luke Skywalker, but also dismissed other iconic Star Wars characters like Admiral Akbar. He was simply killed off by being blown out of a window. But it wasn't just the original trilogy characters that Rian Johnson and Disney butchered. They also butchered General Hux. He became a joke in The Last Jedi, contrary to his portrayal in Force Awakens. It didn't end on screen either. Rian Johnson would lash out at diehard Star Wars fans, criticizing The Last Jedi, describing them as man babies. Johnson would also try to blame Russian trolls, politics, and fans for the intense criticism The Last Jedi faced. Johnson would not be the only Star Wars creator to go after fans. Star Wars author and comic book writer Chuck Wendig also attacked Star Wars fans. Wendig would eventually be fired from Marvel and Star Wars for his rhetoric. All true statements. All true statements. And, it's easy to say, well, you're just biased because you don't like The Last Jedi. That's true. I am biased. But I also didn't like the behavior of Rian Johnson, who I guess his trilogy might be on the outs. But I really don't think you can ignore this. I really don't. Hard to ignore this poll. Because this isn't on my Twitter account. This isn't on an Ethan Van Sciver Twitter account or Geeks and Gamers. This is Netflix. Netflix is asking this question. Netflix is asking this of NPCs, Fandom Menace people, and they all agree. Lord of the Rings is better than Star Wars. Would this have been the case 2 or 3 years ago? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. I think Force Awakens left people with a taste of hope in their mouth when it came to the franchise, especially after some of the bad prequel trilogy stuff. Nostalgic kind of peeled away from that movie over the years because it was literally a copy and paste of A New Hope. But, it was still better than what we've gotten recently. So, I don't know. I think this is pretty telling, though. Lord of the Rings, more popular than Star Wars. What are your thoughts on this? Leave a comment below, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, make sure you're still subscribed, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.